Welcome to the story of Everyman. Today's episode, we have Doug Daly, a chiropractor and a trainer in CrossFit.
Doug was probably the best CrossFit trainer I've ever had. He really puts a lot of effort in, and he is very smart. I think there's two kinds of people that I really respect a lot, and it's people that are really smart and people that are really humble. Okay. And I think Doug is both of those.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. So, Doug, how long have you been doing CrossFit?
Oh, I've been doing CrossFit for about 11, 12 years now.
Where do you train CrossFit at?
CrossFit 259.
Where are you from?
So originally from South Louisiana.
How did Texas capture you?
Originally came to Texas after I graduated undergrad, and I went to Parker College of Chiropractic in Dallas.
Okay.
And that's where I met my wife. Then from there, I moved to Alaska, and I practiced in Dutch Harbor, Alaska. So it's where they filmed Deadliest Catch.
Wow.
Was the only doctor of any kind for 1,000 miles.
You were?
Yeah.
So what type of chiropractor are you? You said you were the only doctor for miles.
When I was in Alaska, standard chiropractic. I basically, as long
like
as
cracking backs and all that?
Yep.
Did you enjoy being a chiropractor there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The biggest thing was the isolation. We had no cell phones.
Was it just a signal issue or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they had one cell phone company on the island by the time I left. It was, you had to use their phone, so you had to buy their phone. It was $1 a minute, and your minutes expired after 7 days.
Holy cow. And what year was this?
This was 2008 to 2010.
Man, they were running y'all.
And your internet speed was half the speed of dial-up.
What?
So
holy cow.
You had no mail carriers, so everybody had a P.O. box, and there was nothing really on TV. You had two channels.
Wow.
You had the native channel, or the Ululu tribe, and then you had a PowerPoint presentation channel that had all the local businesses that ran 24 hours a day. When I met my wife, when we graduated chiropractic school together, she went to Colorado, I went to Alaska. We would fly across the country whenever I could get off the island and meet each other and, reconnect. And
how long did you guys do it long distance like that?
A year. Well, I had to go and buy the old school calling cards to be able to talk to her. And then we had to figure out the time zone difference.
Now, before we came in, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. Before we came in, you had talked about firearms.
Yeah.
Were you already into firearms at this point, or is this later?
Oh, yeah, no, my whole life.
Okay. So you grew up around firearms?
So growing up in South Louisiana, both my parents were retired law enforcement.
Okay.
So my dad was the head firearms instructor for a number of years. He retired as captain of patrol for the Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office. We grew up shooting, grew up hunting, and
I guess, would it be safe to say that that's one of your releases throughout your life?
When I get a chance.
Yeah. Okay.
So right now, it's family.
I think that's one of the things I respect most about Doug was when I talked with his wife, she was very protective of their relationship. Yeah. I think I was making a joke about Doug, and she's like, Doug is great. Doug is such a good husband and a father. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, wow. I wish, I hope I have that kind of relationship someday with my wife.
I hope you do too.
I wish I heard that conversation.
I think I said something like, oh yeah, your husband, Doug, he's the worst, and she's like, Doug is actually a really great, something like that. I was like, that's not what I meant.
Yeah.
But I was like, that's really nice that that she sticks up for him.
I think honestly, you won't hear a lot of that because that comes in moments where your partner, and sometimes you will defend your partner in those moments where they're not in the room, and that's the best.
Yeah, well, as far as relationships go, me and my wife have been through it all.
Yeah.
Not to get too personal, but after our third baby was born, my wife got really ill. She got toxic shock syndrome.
Okay.
So I brought her to the hospital about 24 hours before she died of kidney failure in her sleep. Basically, she was in ICU. Mm-hmm. They didn't know if she was going to survive, or if she did, if they were not going to have to cut off her legs and her arm. I had a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 1-week-old at home with 2 businesses to run at the time in South Louisiana. So it was touch and go, and had to teach her how to walk again, had to care for her, had to care for the kids, and she was out of work for probably 9 months.
Oh, wow.
Wow, that sounds terrifying.
Yeah. Well,
how long ago was that?
That was 9 years ago. Because it was 1 week after my third was born. and she's 9.
Man, I'm glad she's okay now.
Oh yeah,
I'm glad she survived.
You know, she made it out with no amputations, no long-term side effects.
What faith did you grow up with, and what faith do you practice now?
I grew up Catholic because
Okay.
South Louisiana, whole family, you know, church and the confirmation and the communion and the whole deal. Now, my wife, she grew up in Washington State, non-denominational.
Mm-hmm.
So when we met and when we got engaged, and it was like, look, 2 things I ask. 1, that you take my name, and 2, that we get married in the church for my mama. And she says, okay. So we went to non-denominational, and I was like, this is kind of loosey-goosey. I'm not really sure. You know.
Why are we doing these goofy things and calling a church?
It was the band, and I was like, no. There's an old lady on an organ singing off key. That's our only music.
That was her church.
That was my church.
Oh, that was your church.
Yeah,
My
her
bad.
church had like the rock band, and everybody's singing.
That's
and
like us.
jumping
Yeah,
and,
that's like us.
yeah. So then we go to Catholic Mass, and we made about halfway through, and she was like, she just looked over and went, not happening. So we talked, and we kind of came to, basically she goes, look, if you come over to the non-denominational side, you can eat meat on Fridays during Lent. I was like, sold.
Oh my gosh! Oh wow, that's awesome. That is awesome, Doug. All right, so that's what you practice now.
Yeah.
Were you practicing non-denominational at the time of your wife's
Yes.
illness? Tell me about your faith and how y'all worked through that during that time.
So a lot of it was compartmentalization, honestly.
Okay.
You know, a lot of it was take care of the kids, make sure they're fed, they're clothed, they're taken care of. I got 1 hour 3 times a day to go to the ER or the ICU and see my wife. And it was, how are you feeling? Pick up breast milk, and then look over all of her medical stuff, all the tests that they had run recently, talk to any of the doctors that were around. And then basically at night when we couldn't be together, that's when we would FaceTime. And that's where, you know, we would pray and there was a lot more praying going on that night. Because with toxic shock, it's very rare and it's even more rare to survive without long-term side effects. And so with hers, it went through both her legs, her right arm, into her pelvis. So her calves were the size of my quads.
Holy cow! And based on what you're saying, it's not common. It's a rare.
It's very, very rare. Yeah.
What were your thoughts towards the commitment to that relationship, that marriage, that family when you were going through this? What were you telling yourself in your head to say, this is where I'm supposed to be?
That was a tough one. I can remember I was in bed and I had my 3-year-old on my left arm, my 2-year-old on my right arm, and I had my 1-week-old on my chest, just laying in bed trying to get some sleep, going, I can't do this alone. You know, she needs to make it out, and you know, you pray and hope that, you know, you pray a lot for her, pray a lot for the kids to that everything makes it through, and you know, they get to know their mother. And
if your wife were sitting right in front of you right now, what's something you would tell her about how what she has meant to you up to this point?
Oh, it just means everything. You know, I joked with her a lot that, you know, I told her, I said, look, if you don't make it out, I was like, I'm going to load up the car. We're going to take the kids to the mall. And the first lady that goes, those kids are cute, that's their new mom, because I can't do this alone.
Hey, that's a good plan. That's a good plan.
I like that. It's an excellent plan.
Yeah, and you
That
know,
is hilarious.
I was like, look, I'm wheeling you around in the wheelchair, and I'm helping you along. I said, this is the stuff when we're 80, not when we're in our 30s. So we're getting this out of the way now, so you're going to be really strong for the rest of the time.
That's awesome.
So what do you think are the things that really have made your marriage successful?
Humor.
Humor.
Yes.
You
Nice.
got to be able to make them laugh.
Man.
Nice.
And I try to do that every day.
Yeah.
Good.
So,
Good.
That's good.
but communication, I mean, is always a big one, right?
Right.
You know, I don't hold anything back. I'm pretty much cut and dry, black and white. So
I like you, Doug.
I don't really sugarcoat things, so I tend to speak my mind. So that kind of
He really does.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's good.
kind of keeps everything open. And you know, I know a lot of strife with some marriages is money, and we don't worry about that.
Yeah.
It's something where, you know, when I took the Erosti position and moved to Texas, we had to divvy up some of the responsibilities, and she took over, you know, paying the bills and the money, and I just go work.
Right.
And
Good.
as long as I can put gas in my car, that's really all I need. So
Right. Moving to Texas was another one. Tell me about that.
yeah, so in 2016, after everything with my wife, she was getting better. We narrowed it down to about 5 different places, and we did research, and we loved Longview, so that's where we moved.
How did? Okay, so 2018, right? You said.
Mm-hmm.
So when does CrossFit 259 come into play?
Oh, that was from the day I got here in 2016. So
You were just looking for some.
Erosti is really big in the CrossFit community. So
Okay.
when I got here, there was CrossFit 259, there was CrossFit Longview, there was CrossFit Citadel.
You came in right when that fad was like on fire, wasn't it?
Mhm, there, I covered. I was the only doc in Longview and really covered most of East Texas. So I was networked with everybody.
Nice.
So I would get up and I started coaching. I want to say in like 2017 with CrossFit 259. So,
Did you jump in there like right as an employee?
Yeah, I started working out there in 2016.
Oh, okay.
And then they lost their 5 a.m. coach, and they approached me about taking over and coaching because at that time they only had one coach, which means he was coaching from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Wow.
And so I like doing CrossFit. I like working out.
And Matt starts coming to the CrossFit 259.
Yeah,
Now-
I think in the beginning of 2021 was when I started coming, and I wanted to go to a normal class. I wanted to go at like, 4:00 in the afternoon. And they were like, well, since you technically haven't done CrossFit, I had been going to like an off-label gym. They were like, you're either going to have to pay for the $300 course or you can come to like the 5 a.m. class, And I'm like, guess I'm coming to the 5 a.m. class.
So he starts going to CrossFit, and I'm like, we ask each other every week, did you go work out? What'd you do? And I'm gonna give. I couldn't tell you, like maybe 6 months. Matt started looking a little solid.
Oh, absolutely. He got strong. His lifts were good. But much like your shooting star, that was Matt. I mean, he come out really good. I'm like, he's young, he's good in shape, he's doing great. About halfway through, I'll be like, what happened to Matt? And he'd be somewhere, like against the wall, kind of catching his breath, and like, workout's not done, man. I'm coming. It's okay.
Man, that was a rough time. I was in such good shape, but I was not taking care of myself at that time at all.
But he was proud of himself when he'd come to church. He's like, yeah, I worked out this weekend.
Yeah, I think it was like maybe after 6 months or a year, it was like, I can't keep waking up at this time. I can't keep, not eating good and not sleeping. And
He did try to get me to go, but I was like, no, I can't do that. I think for you, and you correct me if I'm wrong. I'm making an assumption here, and you help me out.
Yeah.
I think part of it was just a lifelong installation of discipline being instilled in you, and so it kind of came almost like a natural process through life.
I like consistency, but I like routine more than anything.
Yeah,
I get up, I eat the same thing for breakfast, I eat the same thing for lunch, I eat the same thing for dinner for like the last 7 years. So
That's awesome.
I get up at the same time every day. I go work out at 4. I coach at 5. I get home at 6. Second breakfast, kids. I get to work about 45 minutes early, read through all my patients, treat patients, get done.
But I do like to hear how disciplined people do it. I'm obviously not disciplined in certain ways, and I'm disciplined in some ways. And then in several areas, I'm all over the place. All right, so Doug, I have one more question for you. If today was your last day on earth and you were going to be gone tomorrow, what message would you have for humanity?
Oh, wow. Leave it all out on the field. Don't leave this day with regrets.